Hello and welcome back to the Demis Hellen channel. We've missed a couple of months on the Arpeggio series, so we're going to come back with the September one, and I'm going to show you a couple of tips and tricks on how to pull out emotion out of the scale that you might choose. Okay, so here we are. Let's jump into this. The preset today is a non-saved one, so if you're on Patreon, this will be available as part of the video downloads along with the MIDI. If you don't have Patreon, that's absolutely fine. You can just sort of copy what you just saw on screen there, and you can copy this MIDI too. So this is in 16ths as well, but there's a couple of longer notes in there because it's such a simple melody, or simple rhythm pattern, shall we say. It just needs a little bit more sort of embellishment like this. We've also got some teaching aids down the side. I've got a chord here and I've got the scale here. We're also using the scale assistant here, A Aeolian minor, so natural minor, and that is all white notes A to A, so it's really easy to follow. And what we're going to focus on in this tutorial is the C and B and the F and E. These are the ones where I like to say they sort of pull the emotion out of the chord, or should we say the scale. It just helps to drive it a little bit better, and I'll show you what I mean when we start building this. So just so you know what I'm talking about later on, if there's a gap between the notes, even though that note is not in the scale, which A sharp is not, that is a whole step. It's having to step over a note. And then if they're next to each other, they are half steps where they just sort of like step into each other. So F and E and C and B for the A minor scale is what we're going to be focusing on. So let's have a listen to this. Nice and simple, got plenty of delay on there to give us some context. So I'm going to follow the rule first of the standard triad, which is here. This is an A minor because we're in the key of A. I'm going to start with the A minor. Let's bring this to C and this to E like so. And let's just play this back. Works quite nicely, but very, very simple. So I'm going to take a copy of this over here so we don't alter the original, so we can come back to the raw idea if you ever need to. It's a good way to work. So with this, I want to focus on sort of the first chord there and understand how I'm making chords within the melody. So I'm following the notes in the A minor scale there. But I want to utilize the half steps, because they've got a lot of emotion that you can pull out of them depending on the sequence that you use. So I'm going to pull this one like this. So I'm going to use the half step and go back to A. Let's just see how that sounds. Works really nice, and especially going up to that E. Sounds a little bit jarring, but it works. So we can do the same up here. We could go to F and down to E, and then maybe let's go to C. So we're still keeping in with the triad, which is these three notes here, but we're also utilizing the half steps. So a little bit more of a serious tone to it. Maybe that could go to D. Quite nice, but we want to conform to this, so I'm going to go to B, possibly. And then to C. Okay, and then I'm going to push these up and I'm going to utilize the F and E and the C, in fact the B, so it jumps down to there and we've got those sort of half steps in there. So that sounds quite nice. I'm going to swap those around so they're rising upwards. And let's try them one octave lower. So a little bit cheesy on that side. It sounds a little bit better up here. So I'm going to do the fall and maybe just go to C. So you can see I'm just trying out different ways of sort of putting these. That works quite nicely, but let's not have it rise as high. So let's maybe have it on the E, which is the fifth. Okay, so we're starting to build a melody there. You can hear it's quite clearly coming through. So let me quickly take you through this. We've got the root note, And then we've got the two half steps, which one of them is our fifth of our chord, which is E, the top note of our A minor chord. Then we've got the half step B up to C, which obviously the C is our third note of the chord. And then you can see that sort of sustains across there. And then we're using the half step E, which is the fifth, down to the C, which is the third, and down to the B, which is our half step, back down to A, which is our root. So you can see we've created a journey through there, and then it sort of comes back and resolves back round to wanting to go back to A. So that's really good. That's starting to sound pretty nice. So I'm going to make one more copy of this, because I want to keep this video relatively simplified so you can easily follow along. And what I'm going to do is change the bass on this. So I'm going to follow the same rules to start with. Let's just have a listen to how this moves. We could have this follow the same shape. So let's just have C and E. This is not what we want to do, but just to demonstrate using the A minor chords. So a very specific type of track, but one rule of thumb that I like to follow with my own melodies is if the melody is going upwards, I like the bass to go down. So even if it is going to the same note, say it's going to F, I'd still go an octave lower than an octave up, depending on what you're trying to do, but that is usually my rule of thumb. So we've got a C. I'm going to take this down to an F. And then I'm going to bring it up to a G, and then it's back round to the A. So what's happening here is I've broken the rule of just using F and E and C and B, as well as the triad. I'm now utilising the rest of the notes in the scale. So this has gone down to F. It could easily go lower, but my brain, my creativity takes me upwards. And this is one thing that you sort of really need to listen to, that internal monologue of your creativity. When you're making something and you hear it, your brain's like one step ahead, hearing where the melody should arrive. So you know roughly what you're trying to do, and having a bit of music theory behind you is going to help you achieve that a lot quicker. So with that, we'll have listened to that upwards. A bit whooshy, so let's go here. It's okay, but I'm just trying to find a location now. I want it to be a bit serious on the resolve at the bottom. And there we are, the D hits the mark there. So if we transfer that up one octave, let's just hit the right keys here. That works quite nicely for the pace of the track. This is about 132, I think. So it's 125, so it's a lot slower. But you can see that is a nice starting point that we've developed there. So I'm going to show you a couple more now without me speaking, showing you a couple of melodies that you can create using the same key and this same pattern. Okay, so there's a couple of ideas for you. If you want to use them, you can copy what you saw on screen. Again, Patreon supporters can get that downloaded. So I just want to show you one more thing. If you want to change the key of this, some of you may know this, some of you may not. It might not be too obvious to you. But if we was to jump in and say, let's choose F sharp, each key has a different tone, a different feel to it. Let's choose F sharp. And then natural minor, you can see we've got a lot of notes that are not in key now. But what we can do is, because it's F sharp, we can put the root note into F sharp. So we've got an A down here. So I'm going to shift that down, G sharp, G, F sharp. And then you can see everything pops into key. So now we've got a different tone. and you can hear that has a totally different energy to it. So if we was to transpose that up a little bit, it's a little bit too low. So forgetting the key now, we're going to see some wrong notes, but let's just say we want this in the key of D. Has a totally different feel yet again. So I prefer that F sharp. It does sound quite nice, but you can compose in a key that you're confident in, such as A minor, all white notes, really easy to memorize when you're playing on a keyboard or when you're noting this out, and then you can just transpose it into whatever key you like that sounds best for that. And there we are. That brings us to the end of this video. Hopefully you've learned something new, and obviously you can take away this arpeggio for free if you're just copying it off screen. But again, Patreon supporters can download everything they've seen today in the video. So with that said, thank you very much for watching. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care.